Amazing. It was poetry. I agree. Short sellers just got wrecked. I mean, completely wrecked. And and it wasn't a huge trade, but we run a fund, More Greek Digital, and 80% of our investments are in equity of businesses building the digital future, AI, blockchain, chips, data. 20% can be in liquid protocols, and we don't trade, we accumulate. And so we were getting ready to make a capital call. And so it just happened that the timing was right. So night before last.
Elon Musk played a pivotal role in swinging this election.
Oh my gosh. I mean, incredible. And look, people know this about me. I've not been historically the biggest Elon fanboy. But in the last month, I actually consumed a lot of content, including I haven't watched the whole thing, but a lot of the Rogan podcast. I'm coming around. I mean, this guy has, I don't know, maybe he's changed. Maybe he's more measured. I mean, he's always been a visionary. He's always been really good at execution, but he's just so much more measured now and positive. He's a really, I don't know. I'm becoming a fanboy.
Yeah. The Gensler story couldn't be bigger as well, obviously, right? Donald Trump said fire Gary Gensler on day one. As you said, there was a fear that if Harris won, we would get more of Gensler, although there wasn't much clarity on that. But just sort of unpacking his likelihood of continuing, I would say, is slim to none, and slim just.
Oh, he's out. He's out. And the thing, at first, it's kind of a silly statement, right? It's kind of, we'll just print the $1 trillion coin. Remember that nonsense that they were just going to print a $1 trillion coin and hand them out? But the difference here is, when you think about debt, right, there are only 4 things you can do. So once you get massively in debt, there are 4 ways out. You can pay it back. Well, but the problem is, if you confiscated all the wealth of all the citizens, you couldn't pay, not their income, all the wealth, you couldn't pay down the debt. Okay, so that's the first problem. Second thing you can do is you can default on it. Well, now governments that default get kicked out. So politicians don't like to get kicked out. So they're not going to default on it. I mean, that's a last resort. Third thing you can do is you can restructure it. Now, this is interesting. The only way you can restructure it is you get someone to take the other deal. So if you say, hey, I'll give you 70 cents on the dollar for your debt, the average holder outside in China or Russia is going to say, screw you, I want 100 cents. You told me it was money good. If you told them, I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar. And then we went back in the last 4 years to just yuck. I mean, total yuck from a policy perspective, from an ideological perspective. And so now he wins again, and the TDS is like super real. But the sun came up today.
I've been tweeting that all morning. Like, it's fine. Kiss your wife, hug your kids.
Yes, I did. I almost sent that to some friends of mine who are having some pretty bad TDS right now, because it's such a great point, right?
Yeah.
What do things really matter in life? Your kids, your family, your friends. You know,
what I find very interesting
hang out
in this election, and I've been saying to people who are obviously coping, which I understand, like, is that in 2016, it was an idea they were voting for. As you said, it was the drain the swamp, all of those things. In this election, people knew exactly who they were voting for. So you can't really cope about it. You can't say Americans are dumb. You can't say they don't get it. Like, we had 4 years of Trump. We had 4 years of Biden. In this case, people were voting on exactly what they...
Like, Vivek is going to be involved. And he's through and through a Bitcoiner. And there's a whole group of people who are advising the advisors on why separation of money and state is a good thing. Now, it's not going to be quite as easy as we think, because governments kind of like having the monopoly on money. They do. And they've had it for a long time. And the banks also like, which is why they've bought and paid for Ms. Warren, which is how she got 82% of the vote, because they paid for those votes. And that's not going away anytime soon. But ultimately name a technology that was better, superior, that then got to a point of critical mass and then went away. Can't do it.
You've always made the point that you made the most money on the fringe, on the technologies and the investments that were on the fringe. The internet was first for, I guess, pornographers, and Bitcoin was first.
He'll do that. I don't know. But if he does, it's possible that instead of a CBDC, we get a plan to use Doge as the government, if you want to, do the EBT cards rather than using, electronic dollars, you could use Doge. If something like that happens, I mean, my socks will need more rocket ships because
and dogs and memes.
And dogs, yeah, I'll need dogs, yeah.
That would be a future I could not even imagine at this point. But I think, more importantly, like, do you think that the Trump administration will be a better scenario for stocks in the next 4 years? I think it's clear that.
For sure. Well, for sure, with one caveat.
Because we thought Harris would print more money, which is usually good for assets,
exactly. So here's the thing: if we're really gonna address the deficit, that actually is less good for economic growth. We and reducing globalism. I didn't get that sense this time. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't get that sense this time. Globalism is good. Comparative advantage works. Adam Smith was right. He's always been right. He'll always be right. And reducing global trade and reducing collaboration globally is negative. Now, I do think that the current administration was horrific. I mean, horrific at global relations. I think that Donald is probably going to do a better job at that. And I think he'll put people in place that do a better job at that. And so that is wildly positive. So I'm actually pretty bullish with the Tim Peterson caveat, which is we are on the verge of the 90-year cycle. Every 90 years in this country, we have had a depression, and it's like clockwork. And we're 2 years overdue. I mean, we're 2, but it's only 2. It's not like we're 22, but we're 2. And about 7, 8 people on each poll. One poll thought massive Trump sweep. The other poll thought a landslide Harris win. Wow. I mean, it's like really interesting. And so there were a lot of people who were convinced of their own position, but really no one was certain. And I think now that uncertainty's gone, we have certainty. And like I say, we don't have to worry about it for the next 3 weeks, changing it. Anyway, I think markets will do well in the short run. And look, I did a podcast on this last week. They said, well, what's going to happen? I said, well, look, in the end, Bitcoin and digital assets, doesn't matter who wins, number go up. Why? Because dollar going to go down. And that's all it really is. Remember, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. Bitcoin never changes. It's how we value it in a currency, a base currency. So in Argentina, number doesn't ever go down because the peso just keeps going down. Or in Turkey, the number go up because the lira goes down. So the same things happen with the dollar and the yen. The yen, that's why I love Metaplan.